And out of the sky, one day, came terrible objects. They were like gigantic bows, and people had, however, great mental power. They told our people that they were gods. Some told our people that this earth had produced them generations ago. King Umbaba, the terrible lord of the reptile people, said, "Look what you've done."
Wait, did you hear what he said? Did he just say King Umbaba? As in the same Umbaba from the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Anunnaki? You mean the same ancient reptilian figurines that are found all over Mesopotamia? No, it's probably a coincidence, right? Well, wait till you hear the rest. I've always thought that the story of the Epic of Gilgamesh, as it was being told in the multiple different interpretations from mainstream scholars, did not add up. I was missing something. But when one of the last remaining African mysticists, Initiate, told the story, then it all made sense. The acclaimed author Dresden James once said, "When a well-packaged web of lies has been sold gradually to the masses over generations, the truth will seem utterly preposterous, and its speaker a raving lunatic."
Where is this coming from, this whole angels and demons thing?
I think actually one of the best books about this subject is a text by William Bramley called The Gods of Eden. This guy started out researching the history of war and profiteering. And instead what he found is a history of alien intervention in human history. And other horrific events were engineered by these entities who show up.
These same stories are present in the Bible. They are present in the Epic of Gilgamesh, and they were first told by the Africans before being inherited by other nations. The story starts with a description of humans and a description of the earth that is entirely different from what we know today. Now, whether or not aliens are real and visited our ancestors, that is a whole other subject to explore. But what is more shocking and more useful to us is the content and meaning of what they are trying to tell us. And what the ancient Africans are teaching is liberating for anyone that is seeking the truth.
On the foothills of Mount Kilimanjaro. This is the story, a story you find throughout Africa. There was once a time people could not see the stars. People only saw the trees growing, trees which were very, very big. There was no desert at that time.
Here, Credo tells us that humans at the time lived in an environment where trees were so tall that they could not see the sky, and that there was no desert. There is a land that we know of that used to be a dense rainforest, and that turned into a desert thousands of years ago, and it happens to be the Sahara. The last African humid period during which the Sahara was a tropical forest lasted from the end of the last ice age, about 14,500 years ago, to 3,500 BC, when it dried up. This date, 3,500 BC, is very interesting because it corresponds to when the ancient Egyptian civilization, the Nubio-Kemetic civilization, officially begins. If you look at the vegetation map of Africa today, you will notice that right below the Sahara, a dense green belt begins, but the dividing line cuts across the whole continent. When we rewind that clock back 5,000 years, even 9,000 years back, the dense rainforest of the Central and Western African countries extended well into the southern countries of the Sahara Desert, a perfect green and lush land where humans lived in their formative days, a veritable Garden of Eden, a gargantuan garden that is larger than Russia, a garden that spans multiple of the biggest countries on Earth. Mauritania, Mali, Niger, Chad, and especially Sudan, and Ethiopia.
Mauritania. That rings a bell.
Oh yes, in Mauritania, we find the remains of the best candidate for what many call Atlantis. Many African traditions speak of this great mythical kingdom, like the Bedouin myth of Zazura, a hidden white city or oasis somewhere in the Libyan-Egyptian Sahara, a city, white as a dove, with a sleeping king and queen and treasure. Guards are described as black giants, often read as Tebu. The story surfaces in medieval Arabic compilations and later travelers' reports. 20th century expeditions went searching for it.
At that time, sir, people were what we call in Zulu, ngubili. A human being was both male and female in one body.
In the Sumerian epic of Enki and Ninmah, the creation goddess fashions humans with neither a male reproductive organ nor a female reproductive organ. What are the odds that, again, the Sumerian texts mirror African creation myths so closely? This doesn't surprise me at all. There is a research paper from Loring Brace from the University of Michigan that shows that Natufians clusters closely to Niger-Congo people, and its next closest cranial neighbor is prehistoric Northeast African. Remember that the Natufians are the first to invent agriculture. They lived in the Levant in 10,500 BC. The Natufians were also the first to build monuments with stone. Essentially, they were the first true civilization. In fact, let me quote from the article. The Niger-Congo speakers, Congo, Dahomey, and Haya, cluster closely with each other and a bit less closely with the Nubian sample, both the recent and the Bronze Age Nubians, and more remotely with the Nakata Bronze Age sample of Egypt, the modern Somalis, and the Arabic-speaking Fellahin, farmers of Israel. When those samples are separated and run in a single analysis, as in Figure 1, there clearly is a tie between them that is diluted the farther one gets from sub-Saharan Africa. This is remarkable, and it validates a lot of the other studies that we have already seen, which point to the clear black African origins of civilization, both the first ever civilization, the Natufians, and in the early days of Egypt. It so happens that those same black people with L0F mitochondrial DNA markers have a creation myth that is identical throughout all the lands where they have been historically found, from South Africa to the Western Levant, a tale that speaks of a time when humans were not differentiated between male and female, and were then visited or created by beings who came from the sky. Is that tale literal or allegorical? We cannot say. There are surely many aspects of truths in these stories, and many aspects that have morphed over time. But what is crazy is that, after 5,000 years, the core of those stories remained the same from Mesopotamia to South Africa, and that the people who lived then can be traced to be of the same African stock.
Natufian culture existed in the same area about 15,000 years ago. They were unusual in that they settled the area permanently. There's evidence of cemeteries, architecture, food production, animal domestication, and burials with elaborate mortuary treatments. The Natufians built organized stone structures decorated with art. This is 2,000 years before Göbekli Tepe. Ayamalaha was a Natufian settlement built around 12,000 years ago. They too used circular structures like those found at Göbekli Tepe.
But the similarities don't end there.
And out of the sky, one day came terrible objects. They were like gigantic bows made of huge gleaming gold. They were shaped like bows without strings, and they were bigger than the biggest mountains. They came out of the sky bringing great noise, black smoke, and fire with them.
The themes of arrival of beings from the sky, gold, but also hints of supreme advanced technology, are common in myths around the world. But here, we find them all intertwined and all associated with the beings from the sky. Their ships, if we can describe their sky vehicles as ships, are not only as large as mountains, but they are also made of gold. Pay attention to this very important gold motif, as we will come back to it in a bit.
And out of those huge objects came them. At that time, human beings could not speak. We had no gift of language at that time. And people had, however, great mental power.
Aside from the fact that this mirrors the Genesis tale of Babel, but in the Sumerian incantation of Nudimmud, the speaker prays that, the whole universe, may they all address Enlil together in a single language, then says the god Enki, shall change the speech in their mouths. So, not only could humans speak with one shared tongue, but in the African myth, they also enjoyed great mental powers. This is a notion that was spoken about by both philosophers, Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Henry Bergson, where they argue that intuition is instinct made reflective and contrasts animal instinct with human intellect, implying early humanity stood closer to instinct. In fact, in Egyptian Hermetic tradition, primordial humanity possessed a nous, a form of direct noetic insight, and fell into materiality. The path back is gnosis, a restoration of immediate intuitive awareness beyond rational discursivity. In other words, meditation or reconnecting with nature. In African traditional religion, this reconnection with nature is done through trance. It is done through sound, through vibration that induces the subject into a state when their mind, taken over by the waves and the dance and the collective, reconnects them with the land where the ancestors dwell, to a dimension that many are seeking via ayahuasca or other substances.
A man would go into the bush and, using the power of his mind, actually call out an animal which he wanted to hunt, and the animal would appear and kneel down before the man. When the Chitawuli arrived in Africa, they told our people that they were gods and that they were going to give us human beings great gifts on one condition: we had to worship them and accept them as our creators. Some told our people that they were our elder brothers and that this earth had produced them generations ago.
The fact that those who came from the heavens called themselves gods and asked for servitude isn't new. What is new in the African tale, and differs from other interpretations, is that some of these beings from the sky claim to be children of the earth from an earlier time.
And they said they had come back to the green womb of their mother, and that they were going to make us into gods. What they did, they created a very strange pair of caves in the land. They dug 2 caves. In one cave was a green light, in another cave was a red light. And they drove human beings into these caves, and each human being had to choose which cave the human being wanted to go into. And those who went into the green cave came out as women, and those who went into the red cave came out as men.
Again, in the Sumerian epics, we see that it is through the gods that humans gain the ability to reproduce, and hence their differentiation between man and woman. After Enlil sets up creation, the poem called Song of the Hoe explicitly says the mother goddess starts human reproduction. He had, the hoe, placed the first model of mankind in the brick mold, Ninmena, now set human reproduction going.
And then the talkers, the Chitauri, told our people that now they were perfect. But the moment the first men saw the first women, a terrible row erupted. The women hated the men because they looked between their legs and they saw what they thought were snakes dangling between the legs of the men. And the men hated the women because they looked on their chests and they saw these big things. What they were, they did not know.
Through the African creation myth, we also learn that men and women, upon becoming aware of their differences, grow apart from each other. Although they each hold the opposite side of the key to human life, their view on nature differs, causing a commotion to break out.
And then the Chitauri laughed. It was to them a very, very big joke. And then the Chitauri said, if you serve us, you wretched little human beings, we are going to make you into gods. And the human beings agreed to serve the Chitauri.
And now we find out the true intent of the Chitauri. Theirs was always to use the human race for their slave labor, and all their interventions and gifts may have been to come to this purpose. Unlike the Sumerian tales, there is a theme of determinism for the humans in the African creation myths. Even though the Chitauri are conniving, they still offer the humans the choice of servitude. If you serve us, we are going to turn you into gods. A proposition that is, at face value, too hard to ignore.
And the Chitauri gave human beings a second gift, the gift of language. People started talking with their tongues where they had talked with their minds before. And there was a big rubbish starting again, because this man did not know the language of that man. And when this man greeted that man, this man thought that he was being insulted, and so a lot of murder and culpable homicides started taking place all over the world. When our people were given language, they found to their horror that they had lost much of their mental powers. They had paid a terrible price.
And so, to become human is to lose your natural connection with the cosmos. But this loss is a choice that our ancestors made, and a choice that we continue to make in consciousness hunt for truth. It is in fact a way for our ancestors to tell us that the gift of intelligence and the gift of speech gives us free will. It gives us agency. But once you have eaten from the fruit of knowledge, you become a servant to the ultimate goal of the intelligent being, the pursuit of eternal knowledge and wisdom, for which you must lose your instinct, the pursuit of the golden objective of all conscious beings, enlightenment.
But the Chitauri were now the masters of human beings. They made them, the human beings, to go into holes in the ground and to mine metal, gold, copper, tin, all kinds of metal. The Chitauri forced our people to mine.
There are mines of hematite that have been found in South Africa that date back to 40,000 years ago. There are also claims that the stone structures in South Africa that are found over an area of 10,000 square kilometers are the supportive dwellings of a civilization that was engaged in heavy gold mining. But these claims are being disputed. One thing is true, is that the region is incredibly rich in gold and shows signs of ancient gold mining that are very difficult to date. If you find the entrance to a mining shaft that is very ancient, how would you be able to date it if it didn't use datable material for structure support? You wouldn't. Also, regardless of how old this civilization is, the fact that it stretches tens of thousands of square kilometers with oddly built stone structures, similar to Great Zimbabwe, with hundreds of thousands, and some are reporting millions, of these stone structures. These facts show that this was an amazing civilization, one that isn't receiving the proper coverage it deserves. If these structures were on any other continent, they would be subjects of endless research and archaeological finding. Oh, did I mention that we also found the Egyptian Ankh symbol engraved on these stones?
And the people were very unhappy because they couldn't cope with the new sexual differences which were there now between men and women. And then from amongst the Chitauri came a very good female Chitauri. Her name was Mai Nzarantwari Samahongo. Mai Nzarantwari Samahongo was the senior wife of the terrible chief of the Chitauri, Umbaba.
It is only now in this tale that we come to learn that the gods each have a mind of their own. Here Mai Zamatwari is presented as a benefactor to humans, in contrast with her husband, the terrible Umbaba, a name so strong that it lived through the ages and cultures. Pay close attention to this 16th century BCE terracotta of Umbaba. What do you notice? Flat nose, luscious lips, braided hair. I have said it before and I will say it again. Once you start to look at the source material, you will quickly realize that the whole Mesopotamia was black until very late. This is why they fashioned their gods and their villains as black Africans. Just like in the Sumerian epics, where we find that there are factions with the visitor gods, some who are working to elevate and free humans, others who would seek to keep humans under a veil of control. This revelation is an important motif that shows that the all-powerful gods have faults of their own. Their envy implies jealousy, their jealousy implies insecurity, and their insecurity implies vulnerability. Notice also that this vulnerability is revealed after humans receive the gifts that give them discernment and imprisons them at the same time. A perfect metaphor for a being who becomes conscious. Because once you become conscious, you become aware of your potential, but you also become aware of your limitation and your finality in this version of space-time. And these limitations apply to both men and gods.
Gorontwari Samahongo. She was sorry for human beings, this great reptile lady. She said to the poor people, "Ow, you are unhappy." And the people said, "Yes, great one. We go into the holes every day, we dig the stones and we bring it to the gods, but we are not happy." And my Nzarantwari scratched her scaly chin and began to think and to think. She was terribly ugly. Her eyes were awful, like lights in the darkness. But she had mercy in her heart, and she taught the men and the women how to make love.
And it is through love that humanity finds a bit of reconciliation, a bit of solace. But even modern tales of those visitors have echoes of what the Africans were saying back then, beings that are half human, half reptile.
Well, there are 4 classifications of aliens here on Earth. Those aren't my words. Those are the words of highly respected Pentagon scientists and whistleblowers in classified briefings and private briefings. I guess I'll get you out of here on this, Congressman. I'm disturbed by... So you sat next to a Pentagon scientist, well-respected Pentagon scientist, who is telling you to your face that there are 4 classifications of aliens. He's either seen them or has had contact. You've had private conversations with individuals who've confirmed the same thing as a member of Congress.
And she said, "Look, we divided you into males and females. Now this action is going to bring you together." But it did not, because anyone who receives a gift from the Ntwari, the children of the python, is always in trouble. King Umbaba, the terrible lord of the Ntwari, the reptile people, said, "Look what you've done, you stupid old woman. Now these people, they are making such a noise. Listen to all that screaming in the bush. They are busy making love there, and our gold is not being dug, and you are responsible for this." Nzarantwari thought and thought and thought and thought, and then she got a plan, and she said, "I will make them stop. When they make love to each other, the female is going to get pregnant. And when she is pregnant, the male is going to leave her alone, and that noise in the bush will not be so disturbing to you, my lord."
So, in the African myth, the atonement of the passion of man leads him to be productive, but that production is ultimately in the favor of the gods.
And Umbaba said, "You had better. There is no production here." And Umbaba was furious with his wife. And so it went on and on until one day Nzarantwari activated a black hero called Mweru. And Mweru challenged the great chief of the serpent people to a fight. And that caused a big war. Mweru ran away. But Umbaba, the terrible chief of the people, caught him and arrested him and brought him to his village.
After doing the bidding of the goddess Myzarantwari, Mweru finds himself in the disfavor of the reptile gods. And just like in the epic of Gilgamesh, where Enkidu is judged by the Anunnaki and sentenced to die, so is our human hero, Mweru. The inevitability of the human fate is poignant in these verses. Even the hero chosen by the gods who can battle against the gods finds himself immortal. Here, I would like to issue a warning to those who are sensitive to gruesome descriptions. The rest of the story can be difficult for some listeners.
The great chief Korontwari Umbaba said, "Look, you cut off my thing, and I have replaced it with one made of gold, and I can't make love to my wife anymore. You think too much, you wretched little human being." Now Umbaba had a terrible nail in one of his hands, a claw, and with this claw he drove the claw into poor Mweru's nostril, making a terrible hole into his brain, and he started drinking Mweru's brain, and then he threw away the corpse.
Even in his defeat, in the African tale, we learn that courage is more important than death, that the ultimate goal of freedom, true freedom from the oppressor, is a fight worth fighting, a fight that ultimately turns Mweru into a god himself, not just because his story lives on for eternity within us, but also because Humbaba, one of the Anu gods, consumes his essence and becomes one with the hero. It is this strength that Africa, the reborn Africa, must muster. After the great tragedy of the drying up of the Sahara, which decimated our great civilizations, from Atlantis to Carthage to the Songhai and Mali Empire, and after the desertification caused the greatest population setback in history of humanity, a catastrophic calamity in a 5,000-year slow motion, where our people have been forced to mine our minerals for benefit of others, a new generation of heroes, anointed by Mai Zaman Twari herself, are freeing our people from oppression and leading them to their true destiny. Now that our children are aware of their past, now that our children are at the edge of enlightenment, they are ready to become stronger than the original gods of our fathers, the Anu, the first gods, and they will heed the lessons from the tablets of the true Mother Africa, not the fake, diminished Africa from intentionally distorted maps to make her look small, not the fake redrawn maps where Africa is missing its head, the Levant. No, we will reclaim the whole body of Mweru from the hands of Humbaba, and we will rebuild a new nation that speaks with a shared tongue, just like we did when we migrated from North Africa to the Nile Valley. And we will call Africa KMT once more. Kemet, the land of the blacks. Oh, did I mention that one of the ways to beat the Chudawuri is to click the hype button and add it to your favorites? But if you really want to become Anu, share this video on your social media. For those that have supported the channel through $1 a month, I cannot thank you enough. When taken into context, the whole Mesopotamian chapter is but a continuation of the Nubio-Kemetic civilization, a continuation of the African story, one that we must listen to, not to mimic, but to help us build a better Sumer, a better Africa, one whose borders now extend all the way across the Atlantic. And it is the lesson of the Brotherhood of Enkidu and Gilgamesh that we must heed as a call to action. A reminder that no matter our appearance, short or tall, light, dark or darker skin, it is through the acquisition of knowledge that we will become gods. It is knowledge that makes us Anunnaki. Along with the many who have supported the channel financially, your positive comments are what helps me continue. To my Patreon supporters, YouTube members, crypto donors, anyone who has clicked the like button, and anyone who has ever subscribed and shared. You guys are the rediscovered deities of Sumer. You all deserve the title of Nephilim, the giants of the Levant. Builders of the arch of humanity's history, great sword of Enkidu, counselors to Sargon of Akkad, savants and initiates of the Queen Hatshepsut, generals of the army of Naram Sin, cavalry of the city of Kish, spear of the personal guard of the king Nebuchadnezzar, confident to the great goddess Shamhat. I salute you all. Click here if you missed our video where we cover the evidence showing that the Epic of Gilgamesh was a tale about black people. If you are looking for more without history documentaries that cover Egypt, Rome, Carthage, ancient Greece, and many other classical civilizations, do check our channel. Join us and see how those who are said to be without history birthed civilization itself.